All right, today we're going to get into a story well, it's about medicine, but it's really about being human. We're going to look at how a single diagnosis, diabetic retinopathy, can just turn someone's world upside down. But more importantly, we'll see how some really practical, smart solutions can help them get their life back. So let's jump right in. Just think about that for a second. What if the world you see every day just started fading? You know, the simple stuff like reading a prescription bottle, or really seeing the face of someone you love, or even just walking through your own house without stumbling. All of that suddenly becomes a huge challenge. It's a really scary thought, right? Well, for the 58-year-old man we're talking about today, this wasn't some what-if scenario. This was his reality. He'd been living with type 2 diabetes for 15 years, and now his world was literally losing its focus. Everything familiar was starting to feel strange and new. So, where did this all start? Well, it wasn't like he woke up one day and couldn't see. No, it was this slow, creeping thing, a gradual loss of his vision, that just started messing with every single part of his day. He said his vision was just blurry, and you never knew how it would be from one moment to the next. He started seeing these dark spots, floaters just kind of drifting around in front of his eyes. Trying to read something with small print, like his medication bottles or papers for work, forget it. It became almost impossible. And bright lights, they were actually painful. And he lost that ability to see subtle differences in color, which is so important for things like, seeing the edge of a step. Okay, so all these symptoms, they're all clues pointing to one big thing. Let's get into the diagnosis that was really at the center of all this, the one that was changing his life: diabetic retinopathy. So what is that exactly? Put simply, think of it like this. After years and years of high blood sugar, it starts to really beat up on the tiny, super delicate blood vessels in the back of your eye, in the retina. And this is a really serious complication of diabetes. In fact, it's one of the main reasons adults lose their sight. Okay, so let's break down how this actually happens. It all starts with that prolonged high blood sugar. That sugar weakens the walls of those little blood vessels in the retina. And once they're weak, what happens? They start to leak. They leak fluid, sometimes they even bleed. And all that leakage is what messes up the retina's job. And that's exactly why he was seeing all the blurriness and those floaters. All right, this next part is so important. And honestly, it's something we don't talk about enough. A diagnosis like this isn't just a medical problem. It creates these ripple effects that spread out and touch every single part of a person's life, especially their independence. And you can see that domino effect right here. Basic self-care? He couldn't even read his own medicine labels. Being at home? Cooking was suddenly dangerous. Driving? Out of the question. And his job, which involved a computer, it just became exhausting and frustrating. But the scariest part? His risk of falling went through the roof, all because his depth perception was gone. And this quote, this really says it all. It's not just about not being able to see things clearly. It's about losing the confidence you have in yourself to just manage your own life. When you can't even handle your own medications safely, that hits you right at the core. It's about your independence. But here's where the story starts to change. This is the hopeful part. Instead of just focusing on everything that was lost, the whole plan shifted. It became about what could be regained. And the key to that was a super practical approach: occupational therapy. The whole plan was built around 3 clear, achievable goals. We're not talking about some vague idea of getting better. We're talking about specific, measurable things that would give him back his independence and, most importantly, his safety. Goal number 1 was the big one: tackling the medication problem head-on. The target was 100% accuracy, no mistakes. There was just no room for error. And notice, the goal wasn't to magically fix his eyesight. It was to find new strategies to get this essential job done right. Okay, goal number 2, take back the kitchen. The idea was for him to be able to whip up a simple meal all by himself safely, without someone looking over his shoulder saying, "Watch out." That is a huge piece of feeling independent in your own home. And goal number 3 was all about safety in motion, making sure he could walk through his own home with confidence. No wobbling, no losing his balance, no needing someone to guide him. This one directly attacks that huge risk of falling we talked about. So you've got these great goals, but how do you actually do it? How do you make it happen? Well, the answer is in this really cool toolkit of smart, practical strategies. And we're not talking about some expensive, futuristic tech here. This is all about clever, simple adaptations. I'm talking about things like better lighting that doesn't create a glare, or putting a little piece of high-contrast tape on the stove knobs, using simple tools like magnifiers and large print books, teaching him new skills like how to scan a room with his eyes to find things in his way. And this last one is so important, getting his wife involved, not to do things for him, but to support him as he learned these new habits. Just look at the difference here. This is what it's all about. Before, a stove knob was just a blurry shape you had to guess at. After, with a bit of tape, it's totally clear. A medication label that was impossible to read, now, with a magnifier, it's easy. A cluttered hallway that's a serious fall risk becomes a safe, clear path. See? These little, tiny changes make a huge difference in someone's everyday life. And when you put it all together, what do you get? Well, the outcomes are pretty clear. The whole point was to get him back to being independent, to make his life safer, to bring back that confidence he had lost, and ultimately just to let him be an active participant in his own life again. It's about getting your life back. So this whole story, this journey, it really brings up a much bigger question, doesn't it? I mean, his vision problem was something you could see, but it was a symptom of a chronic illness that's largely invisible. And it just makes you think, how many other people are out there with these invisible struggles? And what other simple, practical, life-changing solutions are we just not seeing?